So, and we have the system down. So for us to just add another property and give it to the accountant and have it done, and we know the system. We know checks, receipts, everything is like, make sure that everything's right in a row, all your ducks in a row, and then give it to the accountant at the end of the year, the state's accountant, and have them prove it out, and then you move on to your next year. So for us to add one more building onto it wouldn't be an issue because we have the routine down. But when you do go 40R, if it's for sale, you don't have a profit constriction, and if it's for rent, you don't have a profit constriction. But in any case, for me, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
So what I'm saying is, if he's just a builder, looks at this land and wants to put up 10 houses
could you do
on
that?
it,
No. So
that's
You couldn't
there
do
was a
that
previous
either.
project proposed that was going to be
Oh,
proposed
yeah, I
here.
remember.
It was a 5-lot subdivision in here. So I would assume, based off of your zoning, that if you put a road in here, that you could get 5 lots. So that's part of the whole thing for 40R versus 40B. So if you compare 40B to 40R, you say, okay, if you go 40B, this developer is going to propose 180 units. If you do 40R, it's going to propose 180 units. It's just what it's going to be either way. If I do 40B, the town gets $0. If I do a 40R, the town gets $725,000, because the way it works is they have a scale. If it's between 100 and 200 homes, you get $200,000 up front. So they get the $200,000, and then they would receive $3,000 per unit over what this lot could produce. So it could produce 5 lots at best, or someone could argue to say it's only 1, because you could put 1 house on it without putting a road in. So it's either 1 or 5, but let's play devil's advocate and say it's 5. So then you say, okay, 180 minus 5, 75 units that the state is going to pay you on when I get my building permit. So every building permit, so if I get a building permit for 36 units, you take 36 times $3,000 a unit. So at the end of the whole dance, there'll be 175 times 3,000 a unit. So if you take that number plus the 200 you get up front, it equals $725,000. Now that's just for this project.
Yeah.
So if they have other projects that'll get them to their 320 or a higher number, it's going to be that multiplier. And I I have the scale of what it is, the range. I have it, So it's on a chart I presented to the town. And it's easy math. You just follow the chart and say, okay, like their housing, elderly housing, or over 62, over 55, whatever it is, 52, 55 or 62, I can't remember. But I think it was 50 or 60 units. The chart tells you 0 to 50 is this much, and then after that it's going to be 3,000 a unit. So if it's 3,000 times 60 units, 180 grand, plus whatever money they gave them up front, they get more money. But it doesn't stop there, because when you go 40R, just like we talked about before, about 40B doesn't go to the planning board, a 40R does go to the planning board, and you go through a site plan review, and you work, and it's like they're working to help design the best project for the town, and they're working with the builder to do it. They can't ask for things that exceed what the state would want. Like they can't say the state wants roughly 30 units an acre of uplands material, uplands product. So if they say, we want you to be 10, well, that's not consistent with what the state wants. So if and they know that up front, so they're going to have their own particular guidelines, the planning board, that will parallel more of what the state wants. And they get it. The planning board gets it. They understand it. So you go to the planning board and they help you design your project, so it's more in line with what the town of Pepper wants.
The 40R.
The 40R. The 40B just goes to zoning board of appeals, and you present the package, and then if it doesn't get approved, then you go to the
Who
state.
issues the first permit for you to start, the state or the town?
The town.
The town does.
Once the town issues it, it's pretty much irrelevant. You got to get final approval from the state, but once the town has approved it, then it's pretty much a rubber stamp after that.
but it looks like the state's not gonna not approve it.
No, the state, the
If
soil
they'll
conditions are
approve it.
great.
Yeah.
It has sewer.
Yeah.
If this had septic, they'd have an issue with it.
Yeah.
If it has sewer, they're not going to have an issue with it. So the other part of your 40R versus the 40B is, if you go 40B, there's no help for school students. If you go 40R, then it's whatever the number of students that is generated by
From
this
this
project,
project,
which
yeah.
should be around, I think it's around 50.
Okay.
Once you, whatever that number is, if the property, the tax on the property does not fit the need or the expense of educating those children, then the state steps in and they pay the deficit of
Yeah.
that, and that's in
Okay.
perpetuity. And then if you need help with any other things like bonds or grants and things like that, so if you want a grant, like everybody knows that Pepperell's having trouble with their wells, PFAS, and they need
Yeah.
well upgrades. After you've approved a 40R and you start asking for grant money, and you're competing with other towns, other small municipalities, small bedroom towns, you jump up the list because you participated in a 40R. The ones that did not participate in the 40R, they're down the list.
Okay.
So you have a better chance of getting grants that you might see to help fix your wells or upgrade your schools, and you get a higher matching rate and higher matching funds when you participate in 40Rs. So it's, to me, if you sit back and look at it and you don't listen to people saying the sky is falling, and you look at it from an educated point of view,
Yeah.
and you look at it and say, what's the pros and the cons? First, you have to realize that you're going to get affordable housing.
Yeah, that,
After you grasp that, you're going to get it. What would you rather get? Would you rather get $725,000 or zero? Would you rather get help with school children funding, or would you rather get zero?
Yeah.
Would you want more control of the site or less control of the site? So it goes back and forth. You run this list, and at the end you say,
Yeah.
you'd have to be crazy not to go this route. So it's,
well, it doesn't look like you're bothering much in here.
no, we can't.
Yeah,
We're not-
right.
we're out of
So
here.
that seems to be everyone's concern.
Sure.
That looks.
No, and if you look at the site's big, and it's got
Yeah, it is.
got beautiful soil conditions.
You're not bothering anybody, period, really.
You know,
No.
2-minute soils are the best, the most advantageous for any type of construction.
Okay.
That's schoolboy development. It's so easy. You take a spoon and you can dig in it.
Yeah.
You can go up to 60 minutes. If you're doing septic systems, you go up to a 60-minute perk. That's how fast will the soil will go over. So this is ideal construction material for digging, for everything. So
So is the state, does the state help finance this? Do you get any help from the state with your borrowing or anything?
well, you have to borrow. I can't remember what the total amount of funds is. I think it might be 25%. You have to borrow from a state approved entity. I think that's what the number is. But and that might be just mass development. You know,
Yeah.
where you get some of your funding from them.
Yeah.
In a project this big, a lot of banks won't take it on themselves, so they'll partner. Like
Okay.
we'll partner. We probably partner on this with Fidelity Bank and
Okay.
Mass Development.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with both Fidelity and Mass Development. We have a
Okay.
project right now in Gardner that we're doing 29 units, and it's partnered with Fidelity and Mass Development together. They work
Mass
very well
development is a state bank type situation. Yeah. Well, that's good.
I had a question and then I forgot it.
So it's still worth it with all these state requirements and constraints on your profit.
Is it
It's still
constraint? Maybe
it's still
it is,
worth it.
but
Yeah.
maybe it isn't constraints on his profit.
Well,
Well,
I
the
mean,
40R doesn't
well-
have constraints. The 40B does.
does,
But in any
yeah.
case,
But you.
we don't. And it's a big number, so you're still making good profit.
Okay.
You're just not
Yeah.
making over 10%, which is fine.
Okay.
Because
Still
you're,
worth it. It's still
yeah, you're
big.
borrowing a lot of money, but you're
Mhm.
bringing in a lot of money. So it is worth it. The other thing for me is, I'm not buying this to sell it. I'm buying it to hold it for my retirement, for my children. I'm local to the area.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing with all of my properties that we're
Yeah.
developing.
Is the state putting any pressure on you to do climate change to make sure everything's sustainable, solar, or
No, that
anything
would
like
be
that?
more, the state doesn't so much
Okay.
that. The state
Okay.
the state mandates that you have to have, it has to meet efficiency levels. Like when we do it, if we do, see right now we're still in the planning phases of which way we're going to go, but in the past, what we do is everything is as efficient as we possibly can get it.
Okay.
So from a heating point of view, we use natural gas, and then we go 95, 96% efficient units with modulating motors, which gives you your highest efficiency you can get with natural gas. They're condensating units, and then we do for your domestic hot water, we do a direct instantaneous water heater. It's just hung on the wall, and it runs at 95.5 or 96%. So they're ultra efficient. So yes, they do mandate that you have certain levels to comply to.
Okay.
And then the state also has your HERS rating and things where you have to prove out a building. You've got to prove what it will be in pre-design, and then prove it out post-design with a HERS rater, an architect that comes in and does a blower door test. on the units to prove out that it actually meets what you designed.
Yeah.
So once you do that, you're designing a very, very tight building. These units are going to be high-end luxury, and what the people get concerned about is they say, "Oh my God, affordable housing is the town is we're doomed or whatever."
But those aren't subsidized. You're not getting
well,
subsidies
you
for
can
the
get
rent.
no when you rent, you can't discriminate. So if someone is Section 8 housing, they can rent. If you rent your house in someone's Section 8, your house you can discriminate on your own home if yours like a duplex. But multifamily housing you just can't. But they still have to comply.
Yeah.
So if you look at what, and I have the chart out in my car, but just off of memory, it's 60 some odd thousand, 69,000 or somewhere in that range. Don't quote me on it.
Yeah.
But in the high 60s for one person. No, that's 62 because I said most engineers come out at 65. That's around $62,000 for one person. So if Kathy or Sandy, if you were out and you were by yourself, and you made $50,000 or $60,000, you would qualify to rent an affordable unit, and it's discounted down, so it's more affordable. So it works out for a lot of people, whether it's a single mom or whether it's a young person. You take people that just get out of college, and then from there, the next year I think they can make it's either 130% or 140% of that salary and still qualify. So as their income grows with them, they aren't completely booted out of that unit.
Okay.
So it works out very well.
So say now it's all built and everything. Now you're taking applicants. Who decides who's going to live there? You?
Well, yes and no. On the market rate ones, we decide.
Okay.
And we also decide on the affordable to some extent.
Okay.
Because if you don't make, for Pepperell, if the household doesn't make $39,000, then it's a non-starter because you're not going to be able to afford to be into that unit. So you'd have to start it, your household would have to make $39,000 to start with. And then the state, because we don't approve the person, we send it out to Mark, or we send it out to, we use one other one that's very good. But we send it to them and they approve it. Because again, you can't play games.
Yeah.
I can't put Sandy in there because I like Sandy.
Right.
She's very nice,
Yeah.
very nice, and I want to get her in
Pay
here.
a bill.
So I fudge the numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
You have to prove it out with all of your information that you send to us and you send to the state. So the state has an approved person that looks at the applications for the affordable units, and that's how you get approved.
For the affordable,
For
but
the
other
affordable, the
units
market
are.
rates we take care of, and we do
Okay.
criminal background checks, sex offender checks, we do credit checks, we Google them.
Yeah.
We go through a very rigorous, you don't want problems. I don't want your son or daughter, if they're renting in there,
Yeah.
to have a problem with somebody that may be violent or have a problem with a sex offender.
Yeah.
So we try to do as best we can to make sure that everybody's safe on the site and that we do a good job of screening.